that notion that there is nothing outside of cheer, it is out there. If you were a parent, you came up and you're like, this is my goal for my kid, I'm like, I know exactly what coach to pair you with. I think a lot of gyms have specific lesson plans, and they're like, this is what you'll do for a month, this rotation, and you won't deviate from it.
How do you handle a cheer mom?
Like, have the biggest adult program like in the state.
What have you found has been like the biggest challenges of starting your own gym?
Markie, thanks for coming on the show. This is so fun to have you here.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We know each other personally. You run the company that my 2 daughters go to for cheer and tumbling. So it's super, super cool to have you here.
And I am just like completely oblivious to this space, so I'm going to have all sorts of dumb questions.
Sure.
Which is why I'm here. I'm here for the
it's
dumb
true.
questions.
Yeah, we do ask the dumb questions sometimes. Or actually, every episode, I feel like we ask the dumb questions.
You're right. Every question we have is actually a little dumb.
Yeah. So, Markie, tell us a little bit about how you got into the gymnastic cheer dance world.
Yeah, so I started probably about 4 doing competitive gymnastics.
Oh, that's early. Okay.
Wow.
I thought you were going to say 4 years ago.
Yeah, no, 4 years old. So I started doing like little tots classes at like 3, 4, and then got like pulled into the competitive program and did that like pretty highly competitive. And it was
Sweet.
a lot. Yeah, I was at some point getting pulled out of school early doing, in elementary and doing like pretty competitive gymnastics. And then kind of transferred over to cheer and did that for a while, then went back to gymnastics, then went back to cheer in high school, then went back to gymnastics. So kind of teetered back and forth between the 2 sports. And yeah, I've done it my whole life and started coaching when I was 14. So I got my first little assisting job. Cool. So almost 20 years coaching, which is, so it's just been a part of my life, my entire life. So
That's awesome. Would you say, in order for someone to be successful in the cheer dance world, they have to start as early as like 4 or 5?
I mean, it's ideal. Like, I would say 5 is like an ideal age to start and be like highly successful. But I'd say like some percentage of kids can start closer to like 7 or 8 and still be successful. But yeah, we definitely have a lot of kids in our gym that are like closer to 12, 13, 14 that are a little bit past that cusp, and some kids have the ability to turn around and be able to do some skills and make high school teams and things like that. But yeah, for sure, to be like an elite level tumbler, gymnast, I'd say 5, 6, 7 is like the perfect age.
Well, why is that? Why would you say that that's the case?
I think fear plays a huge part.
Oh, really? Okay.
Is like when you get into your teenage years. So I think like learning skills younger and being able to throw them and work through the technique of them. Because I think as you get corrections, as you're getting older, you're nervous, and somebody gives you a correction and you're like, oh, I'm doing something wrong, I'm going to fall. Or
sure.
So that definitely is huge. Also, I mean, your body changes. So like going through puberty and going through that change while you're trying to like learn about your body and then learning skills is difficult. So already having those skills like from a young age, it's just easy to keep them, as your body changes. So
I actually hadn't thought about that.
That makes sense.
They're like, I have one of my children, they're like, it felt like within 2 or 3 months they got like 2 inches larger, and it's just like so much is changing from them.
Yeah, and like throwing yourself, like your center of gravity changes,
Oh,
it's like throwing yourself through like backflips and things like
Yeah.
that. It's like, I mean, it's definitely, the taller and bigger you get, it's more difficult.
You get more fragile, especially at our age.
Oh, yeah.
You
Especially
try to
our
do
egos.
something. Yeah.
And the fear, I think fear is just huge. Like if you just don't have those skills, it's just really hard to get yourself mentally prepared to like throw backflips and things like that at an older age. So
What is that? So we're in Utah, right? I feel like we grew up in a very small town.
Yeah, arguably, yeah, pretty small.
Like our high school was like 3A, and I remember the scene, as probably a lot of high schools, it was like the cheerleaders, the dancers, and the football players.
Sure, and then the rest of us.
And I think there's been some very, very successful people from Utah that are in the dance world that have become celebrities and et cetera. So how does that dynamic work just in Utah in general with cheer dance being so competitive, having someone, whether it's like a mom watching this episode, like what are the things that someone should be aware of if they say, I want to be in cheer, or I want to be doing gymnastics, or they go to a U of U gym meet or whatever they call it, and like, I want to do this?
I mean, I think like on the parents' end, like if you have little kids, for sure age is like a huge factor, because I feel like we get a lot of people who come in and like, or they're like, oh, well, my daughter wants to do cheer in her future. She wants like cheer in college, but we're not ready to like commit to it because she's only 8. And so we're going to wait. And I'm just like, that is like a big mistake for you to wait, because she's at like this prime age where if she gets all this training, like she'll be ready to like continue to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And if you kind of miss that mark, it's really tricky. So I guess like we were talking about with the age, I think that's like a huge factor, is getting them in younger.
Okay.
And like getting them the training they need sooner.
Age.
Also, some people just have it. Like tumbling and gymnastics and
Yeah.
dance is like not that everybody can't do it. And that is like the whole purpose for our gym, is like to provide that experience for everybody, everybody, every person, anyone who's interested, and provide the same experience. So I think, but that's tricky, because there are just a lot of kids, like you're going to see them and they come in at 6, and one kid just moves 2 levels in a year. And there's a kid that's been there for 3 years that's like at the same level, and
sure.
I think sometimes that's just like some kids have it. So I think being able to recognize when your kid has it and listening to your coach. I mean, I think our coaches are pretty good about like telling the parents like, wow, she's like really good at this. This is her thing. And like just kind of running with that. If it is.
So if I remember doing this with Belle, my oldest, when she was like, I want to get into, so she did preschool for a little bit, and then they did some one-off little like, cute little shows. Right. And then we thought we got to get her into like an official cheer dance studio situation. When you search cheer studio on Google for Utah, there are so many results that come up. So one question is like, what's the difference between like a gymnastics center versus a dance studio versus like a dedicated cheer? Like, is there a difference with all of those claims?
Yes, for sure. So gymnastics, you're going to do bars, beam, vault, floor. So you're having events. So that's for sure different. But gymnastics centers also offer tumbling classes. So like you could still go to a gymnastics center and learn tumbling, but that's like not their thing. Their thing is gymnastics, So if you're wanting to get into cheer, you're more looking for like a tumbling studio or a cheer studio where you can get those foundations of tumbling without like the entire background of gymnastics. And I mean, there's a lot of us that do kind of the same thing. I mean, I would say there's 4 or 5 gyms that I know that we offer kind of the same things. We have acro, we have tumbling, we have cheer dance, parkour, and we're kind of our own breed of gym. And then of course a dance studio is also going to have tumbling, but their focus is dance. So the tumbling that you're going to get at a dance studio or a gymnastics center isn't going to be as focused as what you get like at our gym,
Okay.
But like at our gym, you're not going to get the same kind of dance classes that you're going to get at a dance studio. So I think just kind of knowing what you're looking for and figuring out like what gym works best for exactly what you're looking for. Cause that's where I worked a lot. I mean, I worked in gymnastics centers, and I always worked as a recreational coach and a tumbling coach. I kind of feel like those programs didn't get a lot of attention because their focus is gymnastics, so just kind of knowing the focus of the gym and looking for exactly what your needs are, I think is important.
How would you recommend that a person like evaluate a coach as like a layman? Like I'm a parent, and maybe my kid's like doing well, and I feel like I see, oh, my kid might have it, right? They're like excelling, they're doing better. And I understand to some degree you attribute some of that to the coach versus not. Like, how do you determine this coach is a good coach or this coach is not a good coach as a parent?
That is so tricky because there are so many different kinds of good coaches.
Okay.
So it kind of depends on what you're looking for. I mean, I'd say, we have every coach I have is a great coach, but they're all different. We have coaches who are progress based, who are like, we're going to get these kids the skills that they want, and we're going to push them to excel, and we're going to push them to those limits. And then we have coaches who are kind and positive, and they're still giving that training, but their purpose is to create like a happy first time positive experience for the kids. And they're not so progress based, they're relationship based, and I think like we know that Like, and I don't know how well other gyms are paying attention to that, but I know that. Like, if you were a parent, you came up and you're like, this is my goal for my kid. I'm like, I know exactly what coach to pair you with, because they just all have different traits, you know? Everybody knows how to teach the same tumbling skills, but in what manner is really different, and what you're looking for, you know?
But you would recommend, like, as a parent, that you should figure out what it is that you're looking for, and that it's fair for you to ask, like, the studios, say, like, this is what I expect from my coaches, right? Because you're paying, right? It's like, this is what I would expect from my coaches. Is that the kind of thing that you offer? Is that the kind of stuff that you have? And
we have different parents. You know, we have some parents who are like, I want her to have a back handspring. I don't care what it looks like. I want that back handspring. I'm like, okay, we're going to get you in with a coach who's fast, who's going to get that skill. Where I have a lot of coaches who coach gymnastics and have technique. And I'm like one of those coaches who I'm like going to hold them back and make sure they have perfect technique before they move on. And some people are looking for that, you know? So it kind of, in our world, I mean, I guess that's different because we are just kind of like a tumbling umbrella studio. So we have lots of different styles of coaching. So just kind of, I mean, I'd ask the gym. They should know about their coaches and kind of who has the best structure for what you're looking for.
My second thought on this is, like, how do you, like, become a coach? Is that a fair?
Yeah, no, that's fair.
It's like, how do you become a coach in either gymnastics or tumbling or whatever it is? Because you know, my experience is just because you do doesn't mean you can't teach.
Absolutely.
So, like, what's your thoughts on that? On, like, you're like, you know, part of this podcast is to help people understand, like, hey, where do they get started and how they get into whatever it is that they're trying to do. So, from your side, like, how would you recommend somebody becomes a coach if they were interested in that sort of thing, or if they were thinking about it?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think just because you can do means you can teach, for sure. However, most of our coaches do have tumbling background and some kind of basis on how to move your body in that way, you know? But yeah, I think, like, for us right now, we're really focusing on training our coaches from a younger age. So, like, I mean, for me, like I said, I started at like 14, started assisting classes. And so that's kind of what we're in the market for right now, because that's been a really special experience for me. Like, I've owned the gym for 6 years, and in that time, I've, like, seen kids that I've taught myself for years, like, come back and, like, want a job and like be like, oh,
that's
I want to like work here. You know, they came back for their first job and they felt something special here. And so we've recruited there, and then also from, like, our adult tumbling classes, because they've experienced, like, the vibe at the movement center and the community and, like, what that feels like to be a student there. And so that experience is kind of special to us. So I think, like, for sure we're pulling from, like, within our program because we provide something different. And I think the kids and the adults who have tumbled with us, like, feel that difference. And then we also do, I mean, when we pull people in, and this is something I've heard that's really different from other gyms, is we don't just, like, throw them into a class. I mean, they co-coach with, like, every other one of our coaches for, like, months, you know, and kind of just get to know the program. Even if they've had tons of experience, it's like what we offer is different. So, I think we pushed pretty hard on our training process. And I think if you had any background and any interest, and you love kids and you love teaching and you have patience, I mean, I think patience is pretty key, you know, for little kids and learning how to, like, manage behaviors. I think anybody could jump in and do it with the right training.
So it sounds like you're suggesting, like, in many of these cases, that, like, the at gym, on the job type training, or through some sort of, like, program in which you're a participant and, like, expressing that interest to becoming into it, is probably one of the best avenues to be able to say, hey, if I'm looking to potentially be a coach, that's the places to start, is to say, hey, you know, find a gym, get familiar with those individuals, or if you're young enough, right, like, take those classes, get into it, and then find opportunities and express your interest in being like, hey, I want to be able to start helping others and coach others in this. Okay.
So outside of, like, finding a gym, is there any, like, formal written path, either, like, through college or something,
or certifications?
Certifications that people need, or that, like, give them more credit to be a coach?
That's a great question. There really isn't, which is kind of shocking that, like, anyone can teach tumbling. Like it's kind of a crazy
That is actually, it's like you need a license to cut someone's hair. But if you want to throw somebody through the air who's like a child in the air and flip them around, it's like, nah, we're not worried about it.
Yeah, it's incredible that there's not more certifications. I mean, for All-Star Cheer, they do have certifications that you have to pass, but we don't really have anything like that. So, I mean, I guess ours are more focused on like monthly meetings and trainings and like physical trainings. Like at our coaches trainings, we're all tumbling and spotting each other and like learning from each other. And but yeah, there really isn't a specific certification. So I would say like the years of experience is definitely important, and the ability to coach different levels, I would say, makes a great coach. Like being able to coach little kids, coach manage behaviors all the way through adults, teaching an adult a skill for the first time. Like, I think that's really where you grow in your coaching, and like being a higher level coach, being able to just kind of coach everything.
Got it. You said All-Star Cheer. What is that?
So All-Star Cheer is it's just like a competitive world of cheer. If you guys know, Max Cheer is in Utah. It's pretty big. So they do All-Star Cheer. It's great. I mean, I grew up in All-Star Cheer, and I think it's great for kids who want that. It's really serious, and it's really
have you ever seen Cheer Moms?
It's aggressive.
No.
Okay.
No, I haven't. So, like, I mean, explain to me a little bit about like the structure of competition. So, like, my understanding is mostly very specific to like the traditional sports of like competitions, right? When I think about, like soccer or basketball or whatever it is, where it's like, okay, hey, you have your you have your sports teams, you have your regions, and you compete in that fashion, and it's like head to head. But I know nothing about like cheer competitions and how that works when you talk about All-Star. I mean, I assume that there's similarities between the two. So help me understand a little bit about like the similarities and the differences between like cheer comp versus like normals, like I mean, and a normal, more traditional type sports that dumb people like me are familiar with.
You're fine. Yeah, like so in the world of our cheer, we go and compete against people in the state, and then we go to St. George and compete against other states. And in the world of All-Star Cheer, you're looking more at the World's Championship. I mean, if you made it there, so it is more like progressive in that way, where you're kind of competing and moving up. Where, I mean, I think so. Our program is high school prep division cheer, which is just a little bit different. It's geared towards like getting kids ready to make their high school team and like preparing them for that. So on an All-Star team, you do your routine, and it's a lot of skills. There's a lot of tumbling, there's a lot of stunting, and there's not a lot of dancing, and there's not a lot of cheering. And like in our world, there's a lot more cheering and there's a lot more dancing, because we're preparing them to maybe make high school cheer or high school dance. And those girls on high school cheer, or even at college, they do sideline cheer. So, you see the cheerleaders like at the football games, like cheering, like those are the girls that we're prepping, where All-Star Cheer is more prepping for like going to a nationals or going to Summit, which is like their big,
like Bring It On.
Right. But like what's the difference between like competitive cheer and like high school cheer? Because it sounds like there is a significant difference between like the stuff that you would do as a high school cheer versus like a competitive cheer person. Like you're expected to do certain things at a higher level. Like help me understand a little more about like what it is that you expect. Because like myself, I'm thinking like myself growing up, it was always like, oh, well, competitive cheer is just the high school team goes and competes, right? Which sounds wrong.
Yes, but they do. So they do go compete.
Okay, they can.
So, and that's what we do too. Like our programs, they do compete, but we're also our program's based around building like a whole girl, like a whole cheerleader, like a leader, right? Like a girl who's gonna participate in service and do cheer at the football games and like be a part of her community. And I think All-Star Cheer is really like sport heavy. Like it's really like there's not a lot of like outside activities and like just things like that. I think like it is really it's more of an aggressive sport, where ours is more of like a you're like building a cheerleader as a whole,
well-rounded.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But we still do compete, and high school girls do compete. They go to nationals, they go to state, they still have competitions, but that isn't like their only purpose.
But
is
like, what's the
competing.
difference between the types of company? Is there a difference between like what you would expect a cheer from like a high school
Yeah.
versus what you would expect from like an all-star cheer? Help me understand like what the
Yeah.
difference is between what you would expect from those two different categories.
So an all-star cheer competition, you're going to like a huge event center, and they have like a big spring floor and lots of lights, and it's just like this huge production, huge show. Where a high school competition, you're like just on floor mats.
Okay.
Just, like, in the high school, in the gym, competing against just a, you know, really genuine competition against like two teams.
Yeah.
So then, but is the skills the same? Like you would expect to be doing the same kinds of like drills or the same kinds of like I don't know what to call it. Like,
I mean, the
performances
tumbling
or
and
skill?
stunting is like the skills are the same, but there's a lot more transitional elements in all-star cheer where we're, like I said, like we have a cheer. So they're, you know, doing like we are TMC. They're trying to get the crowd, they're crowd leading. They're like, they have pom-poms, they're dancing. And so that focus is definitely a little bit different. And I think the expectations for all-star cheer are definitely higher, but the skills when you break them down are pretty much, they're pretty similar.
Could a person wanting to transition from being like into the all-star cheer in very easily into like the high school type cheer and then like for high school to all-star, or is there like a different expectation of, it's like yes, you might be able to make the high school team, but if you want to be an all-star, you have to XYZ, or is that not the case?
I would say that used to be the case, but now I think high schools are pretty highly competitive too.
Oh, okay.
Like
So
it's pretty
they've
difficult to make
elevated.
your high school team too.
Oh, okay.
But there are just different, like you make your high school team versus an all-star team. In high school, you're doing, you know, you're going and cheering for the games. You're doing service. You're like doing things at the school. And with all-star, you're doing more traveling and competing. So I think it's just two different worlds. However, all-star is, I would say it's definitely harsher at a young age. Like you don't make the cut, you can't go and do, you know, those teams. And that's like something that with the high school prep division, we found that we can have a team for everyone. So that is a difference. And that's why it fits our program better. Not that, you know, we've thought about doing all-stars. In fact, we're doing an all-star competition this year. We're just competing non-affiliated because I do think it's fun for the kids to like be a part of that environment. But our purpose is just to make them happy and build their confidence. And I just think the stressful environment for the kids that's not our focus, you know?
Okay.
And you can feel the difference. Like
I don't know. I'm like completely in the dark on this.
Like, so I remember taking Belle. She had TMC. They do like this seasonal performance at the Expo Center.
Yeah.
And there was one time, it was last year. It was same door pretty much, just like segmented off, where there was a legit like cheer competition going on. And then there was this little TMC thing going on. And I remember accidentally going through the other door, and it's like you walk in, it's like, holy crap, this is not where my daughter should be. Just because it's a whole production. Like it is intense. And I think the level of intensity is kind of like the differentiator here, where it's like high school cheer versus all-star or MAC or whatever else. Yeah,
and I think it's great for if you want it.
No,
you know, if that's what you want, I think that's great. Like I said, like I did it, and I think it was great, but it was super highly competitive. So I just like, for me, like for my children, that's not what I'm looking for right now in this world and day and age. Like I'm looking for a place for them to get skills, be happy, feel supported, feel like their coach can not relax on them, but just be a part of their life and focus on like relationships with them and mentoring them and helping them become like great little girls, you know, instead of amazing world all-star cheerleaders, you know?
Yeah.
So I think the focus is just different.
Talking about just like, as you were asking questions, as you were describing, like Bring It On came coming to my head, and I was like, this is like, there's some aspects
which
of it.
Which is clearly probably the most accurate depiction of how that works.
But I'm curious, cheer moms. So you running your own business, you have experience in cheer, the dance world, or gymnastics and everything. Like, how do you handle a cheer mom who's like, this is my daughter, she's the best, and this is what she's going to do, and either like conversations of like, no, you're doing it incorrectly, or like, I'm intense, I know what I'm talking about, I did this my whole life and I'm older than you are. Like how do you handle those situations?
Yeah, I mean, I think parents are really simple. I
Oh.
think like in the end, like I
Yes.
know there's a lot of talk about that, and everyone's like, even some of my coaches are like, oh, but the parents, I'm like, parents just want to be heard. They want and this is their baby, you know, this is their baby. All they want is for you to hear them and listen to what they have to say and take that into account. And that's like, I mean, I'm a firm believer in trying to see both sides of things. And so, like when we do come across issues, you know, so-and-so's coach is being hard on my kid, and I think sitting down and just hearing the perspective, I'm like, their perspective is their reality. You know, whatever they're feeling, they're experiencing, that's their reality. So I think it's worth just having that conversation and just hearing them out, and also backing the coach and saying, you know, the coach has a lot of great background in this, and I'm going to hear her side and why she's making the decisions she's making, because you're not dealing with 18 7-year-olds, you know,
which is a
so
lot.
when you're in the room, you may react differently too. So I think just, you know, being able to sit down and hear people out goes a long way. I think people just want to be heard and know that they have a voice and that their concerns can be expressed. So I don't mind doing that. You know, I just think that goes a long way, and communicating that. And that's something we've been pretty clear with our coaches too about feedback, and that this is a gym that will take feedback. Like we are open to taking the feedback and making the changes. And that's hard for some people. But that's like a company wide commitment, is like, if we hear the feedback, we're going to bring it to you, and you're expected to listen to it and at least take it into account, on the coach's side. So, I don't know. It is tricky, but I think people just want to be heard.
What would you say is like the biggest differences between the way Hollywood portrays these sorts of scenarios? I mean, like we've seen Bring It On and stuff for people like me who've just like, my exposure is really kind of like Hollywood and who hasn't stepped into that space. And I actually do have 3 girls, which we've talked about, whether dance or tumbling or whatever it is on when we introduce them and if we do and whatever. But like, what's the difference between what I see on TV and like the reality of how things work? I
mean, I guess I've been in the world where what you saw on TV was kind of a reality.
Oh, okay.
You know?
So some of it's not too far
I
off.
mean, I do think that is there, and it is out there for like highly competitive cheer, and just, you know, the way that cheerleaders behave sometimes.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not opposed to saying that's something that's out there.
Okay.
So,
Yeah. No, that's my question.
I mean, I think within our gym, our hope is to like create more of like a wholesome family environment. So that is the goal, and to kind of bring those girls down to earth a little bit. And cheer's not life, you know. Life is taking care of other people, and you know, just I think that notion that there is nothing outside of cheer, it is out there.
Yeah.
And like I mean, I do know girls on other teams who cheer is everything, and that is the world that they live in. And so I'm not going to dispute what you've seen on TV.
Okay.
Yeah, it is out there.
Okay.
I think it's just depending on what kind of experience you want. You got to kind of find the gym and what their values are, and if that is kind of what you're hoping for your kiddo, or, you know, if you're hoping for something different.
I think taking a step back on focusing on not TMC, but just focusing on you for a sec.
Sorry, TMC is, what is it?
TMC is the Movement Center. That's what.
Oh, that's the
company
name.
owns.
That's
Yes.
the name of it. Okay,
Yeah.
got it. I don't know if we actually called that
Oh
specifically.
yeah, no, that's fair. So focusing on you, so understanding your experience, you grew up in this world. This is what you came from. Like, where was it where you thought, I want to start my own business? I can do this myself. I can do it better. There were some things that I saw in wherever else that I didn't like, that I wanted to do, or I did like, and I wanted to bring over to the TMC.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I've been coaching. I mean, I was 14 and probably around like 15 years of coaching. I graduated from the U with my degree in exercise science. And I was like, okay, I'm done teaching kids, done working nights. I'm done coaching.
Yeah.
I got a real big girl job. Went to that for like 6 months and was like, this is terrible. This is like not what I want for my life, you know? And 15 years of coaching. I mean, and coaches aren't treated super well. I will be honest about like my experience, like growing up in the coaching world. I mean, like by the time I graduated high school, I think I was making $10 an hour still. So like, and I had been doing it and I was like on the higher end of like a coach, you know, like I've been doing it like my whole life. So, so it's hard to like make it in that world as a coach and like make that your career. It's really tricky. So, so in that moment, I'm like, well, I'm either going to just work this job and then coach nights for the rest of my life, or I might as well just like try and just see if I can do this for myself, because I think like my world without coaching was like pretty sad. Like just without being around the kids, and it's just that's where I'm like meant to be. So so then we just we thought about it for like a year. My husband and I sat on that for a year, and we're like, okay, well, is this really something that's possible? And we decided to just pull the trigger and give it a try, and here we are. Yeah, awesome. 6 years later.
What have you found has been like the biggest challenges of starting your own gym? I mean, like being a coach at somebody else's gym is one thing, but running your own thing, what and like making that leap and going from, hey, do I want to do this to do this? Like, what have you found being kind of like the biggest challenges for you as you set that up?
Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, I think like for me, I'm not like a super businessy person. So like the back end of that was terrifying. Like getting the LLC, hiring employees, like those kind of things like really held me up as far as like, can I actually do this? So for me, I'd say the most difficult part was like the first like 2 years, like I didn't hire anybody. I just like got the gym and I just was like, I'm just going to coach all the classes. Yeah. And then like trying to run the back end of that, and then I worked a job during that time to support it. So I'd work like 6 to 2, then go to the gym from like 3 to 10. So I'd say like time commitment was huge for me. And like just the fear of like hiring and bringing other people into it, I think it really held me back from being able to like have boundaries on it. Like as far as time goes, you know, I'm like, maybe someone in my shoes could have done a better job with like time management. But yeah, I think there's like the pouring your blood, sweat, and tears into it for the first like year to 3 years was probably like the most difficult, you know, curve for me.
And if you had to think about going back and saying, if I had to redo this whole process of like starting a gym and going, what would you do differently?
Well, we did a business plan to start, which my mom had this guy who was a business guy. And, you know, I was like, I don't know anything about business.
He had a suit on and a suitcase. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And for me, like, I'm a coach, you know, like I'm not like a business-minded person. So this has been really difficult. But I think on the flip side of that, for anyone thinking about doing something like this, it's like I have figured it out. Like you can figure it out. Like, but I think some things I might have done different. I mean, I guess the business plan was a great idea because it helped me really get serious. I was like, whoa, this is like a lot. But our business plan was like 50 pages. Yeah. Maybe you don't need to like go that hard. I think we could have probably done with like 10 pages of like what our plan is as a business, but that helped us to really get serious. And I think I could have probably hired earlier. That was like so scary. Just like getting my first employee. I was just absolutely terrified. And now I probably hire, you know, 2 to 3 employees a month. Yeah. And and it's just like a streamlined process. So I think, you know, anyone in my shoes who is thinking about something like that, like you can do it and it gets way easier. But I think that whole learning curve of like running tuition and getting the back end set up of the software system and all those things was pretty tricky. So, I mean, if you had someone to help, like my husband, thankfully was really helpful. Yeah. So I'm really grateful I had his help. He like helped me get the LLC and all that stuff. Yeah, I think something that really worked out for us, but I didn't plan it, was an expansion plan. So we started, I mean, you've been to TMC. We had, so you know the blue double door studio one? Yep. We had 2 rooms when we started. So it was like a front and back studio. And that's where we started. And it was, the rent was reasonable for me, like to commit to. I'm like, okay, I can commit to paying this payment for a few years. If I flop, then no harm, no foul.
We did what we did, yeah.
And then we're in a retail space. So as people kind of moved out, the landlord was like, oh, do you want this spot? And so now we have 7 spots, you know?
Oh, wow. Okay.
So that just kind of like worked out. But in like thinking back on that, I'm like, wow, I could have planned for that, or like should have planned for that. Because if we were stuck in a place with 2 rooms, we would have had to like relocate. So that just kind of worked out, but, maybe I could have thought about that then.
So plan for the current and plan for the future.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
It is kind of cool to see the building, because it's like door, and there's another door that's like, I wonder if they're just going to get pushed out.
Eventually. But when I'm ready, it's like worked out really perfectly.
Right. No, that's cool. Talking about a business plan, you said yours was like 50 pages. You don't have to get too nitty gritty, but like, what are some things that, say, a female watching this right now, where she's in college, she does really well, she has the ability, and she's like, I love being around kids, I love coaching, I want to start my own business. This Markie girl has talked about a business plan. Like, what are the things that she should consider in order to start?
I think I did a lot of had me do some like market research, like as far as like pricing and like what other gyms are offering in the area and class sizes and things like that, just to figure out like what we would consider for that. Because like part of my goal was to keep class sizes smaller, to keep 2 coaches on a class, and just kind of looking at those things and your pricing chart and your logo and your company name and all those things. Kind of fun to like come up with those things and think seriously about them. And then like, what kind of software systems you're going to use and things like that. But I would say it was more based around like market research for me. Like, what are other people offering? What do I feel like I can contribute that's different from what other people have, or what can we do really well? And then like, what kind of space are we looking for? Like, what kind of budget do we have? Like, our budget was pretty huge because, I didn't have a lot to like start it, and we didn't have a loan. So that was tricky. So I think like knowing those things, and if you have the money to like, I had a friend start a gym and she had the money to, do it, and she had a loan. And so she started a big gym, and so that was different. So I think your expansion plan, or like that is important, as like what kind of money you have to put down on it, what kind of equipment you need, like what that's all going to cost. So I think that really got it in real terms for me of like, okay, like, is this actually a possibility or not?
Right.
Yeah, no, I remember looking up a mat. Those things are expensive.
Yeah, each one of those pet pillows is like $800, and we have, they're everywhere.
Just stacks of them.
Yeah, it's just like the mats that like you can do, you throw anything on.
Yeah, anything.
Yeah,
or person.
anything.
Or object.
Child.
Or any child. Yeah.
Yeah. Flip them end over end.
What are some realities of running your own gym or being in this world, whether it's like impact on yourself, your health, your mental health, your husband, family, etc., time, all the things? Like, what are some realities that someone will have to really come to terms with?
Yeah. The time commitment is really big, and I did this before I had kids, and that's something we like considered. We were like, well, we want to have kids, maybe we should do that first. And I'm just like, in my heart, I'm like, I'm really glad I didn't do that, because like I think I thought I could do that, but now that I know my kids and like the time I want to spend with them, I'm like, I couldn't have given what I gave. So I think now it looks, for me, I'm 6 years in, it looks more like 20 to 30 hour work weeks. I think a reality is that things never end for you. Like, you don't go home and clock out, which is like tricky,
Sure.
You're going to get messages throughout the night. You're getting emails, you're getting parent complaints, just sink your heart, So just getting used to dealing with those things is difficult, and creating a balance. And for me, some of the ways I did that is just like giving up opportunities to make money. And I think like you just got to be okay with that. If you're, like we could be holding classes every morning and Saturdays, but I'm like, for me to have that family life balance, I'm a person who like feels the need to be at the gym when things are happening, and I don't feel comfortable having things going a lot of times when I'm not there.
Sure.
So I've had to really like create some boundaries there, and that's been tricky. But yeah, I think other realities, finding the right staff, like hiring and firing is like really difficult.
Yeah.
Like, I never want to hire someone that I'm going to have to fire, because I'm not like the kind of bossy boss that's going to fire you. And that, so being really careful with who we're hiring and those kind of things, and who you trust. Because now I've gotten to the point where we do have things on Friday and Saturday, and I have somebody there who's killer, and I trust them to run it while I'm out. And so putting your trust in other people, I think, is tricky, but I think it's necessary. So just maybe finding the right people is like, as I've gotten, through it a little bit more, like you really need like the right dependable people. I I think another reality for me is like, I think if you're not like a bossy person, you got to figure out how to tread that line lightly. Cause for me, it's like my staff is like, that's like my friend group and my family, you know?
Yeah.
So coming up on issues and dealing with, like if I have to bring an issue to somebody, like that's tricky for me because that's just not kind of the role that I like to play. So I think that's a harsh reality that you have all these friends, but at the end of the day, you're still the boss. And sometimes that sucks, you know, sometimes you just want to be a coach that works there and don't want to be ratted out, you know, so somebody rats me out for being the boss. It's just the worst. So
So how do you identify good people? Like when you're saying you're hiring somebody, like what do you look for somebody to join your team? The things that you're saying, like, and I say this personally knowing that hiring is difficult and it is something that is, I think many people are trying to tackle and figure out what the secret sauce is to hiring. But what is it for you?
I'd say we really focus on like a culture community match, like someone who's going to fit in with the staff. Like we have had plenty of, we probably last month alone, we probably held like 12 interviews and hired like 2 people. So I'd say more interviewing and like really just looking for that person who's going to fit right in. Cause we've interviewed plenty of people who had tons of experience. And like I said, we're more of a training gym. And we're willing to put the training into the person with the right, like that fits right in our culture, you know, who has the positivity, who's going to listen to the kids, who's going to mentor the kids, and who's going to fit in with the staff and who really cares about it. Like we're really just looking for people who are excited to be there and care about it. But then as far as on your management side, you really have to pick some people who you feel like are reliable. Like, and reliability in our job is huge because it's not like any other job. It's like you have these 10 little kids that are like waiting on you and you're like this celebrity. Like if you don't show up, it's a problem, you know? I mean, so I think that's been tricky and we've had to fire some people in the last few months and that's been really tricky, but just to keep the quality of like what we want. So I think really just, looking for like a person that fits in with your culture, I guess, is kind of what we're looking for.
Has there been anything pivotal in your career that has attributed to your success or something that you would deem like this was the thing that put me on the trajectory of where I am now?
Relationships. I would say like building relationships with the parents, with the students, with the staff. I mean, I think just making people feel heard and valued is like irreplaceable. I just think that people aren't getting that in a lot of places. And I think that's something that hopefully you feel like you get at the Movement Center. I mean, I think that is something that we try to provide is just making sure people feel valued. And I think that goes a long way. And, you know, just like hearing both sides of things and issues and taking feedback, I think is like pretty key to success. I think if you're not open to feedback, that's a real problem if you're going to be in this position where, you know, I think some people are offended by feedback and we get a lot of parent feedback and I'm like, that's good. Like, give me the feedback because I don't know what we're doing that you're not liking unless you tell me, you know?
Right.
So I think taking feedback is a huge key to success, and just making sure people feel valued, you know, like clients, employees, that's your job is to make sure people feel heard and valued.
Yeah. No, I think you guys do a great job at that. I think one thing that has been really fun for myself and even my wife too is you guys do a family 15 where whatever you're working on, the coach or instructor is put on the spotlight and all of the parents are watching what's going on. And like you could say that some of those coaches, like maybe they put on a front of like, this is how I'm going to behave in front of the parents, but then this is how I behave in front of the kids. If that's the case, you know, that's their own problem. But I think from being able to be in the room and see what's going on and how my children behave or how the coaches interact with the kids, like that has been really cool to see. Because I've also been part of gyms where it's like I drop off my daughter and there is no like window or anything. And they say, no, parents can't be here. Like you can't watch or anything. It's you drop off your kid and go. It's like, that's so weird.
Yeah.
And like that's almost like
they could be pushing them over.
Yeah. Right. or mistreating kids and telling them whatever. But like, how do you? So this is kind of a little bit more focused on like the negative side. So I want to take the spin and turn it positive. But how does someone identify like a toxic gym to where it's like, this is not a place, like they may think this is where my kid should be, and they think they want to try it out and they're doing well. But like, are there elements of toxic behavior that parents either just aren't aware about that they should try to look out for? Like, I don't like this. Let's put them in a better gym, something a little bit more healthy, a little bit more well-rounded. Is there?
Yeah, I mean, I guess just the ignorance of kids as being little people, is something that I've seen like in other gyms, and just like, I don't really care what you have to say or what's wrong with you. We're going to keep working through that. And there's a lot of that behavior in the world of pushing kids past their limits and not listening to them and hearing them out. So I think, that's something that we really pride ourselves on, is like taking time to listen to our kids and what they have to say, and even if there's a shred of truth to what's going on, or if someone's hurt, we're, a little bit more accommodating to those things. And I think that is definitely something you're probably looking for, is just like a harsher environment where your kid doesn't feel like they can say, I'm hurt, I need to sit out, or they feel like they're going to be ridiculed for that, or their team's going to be turned against them, or things like that. I think is probably like the most toxic behavior I've seen. But I think just not being heard is a big one for kids, because I think they get disregarded a lot because they're little, but they're still people with needs and wants, and they have things that are important to say too. So I think just making sure your kid feels heard in the gym that they're at, like they feel like they can tell their coach things, is important, because a coach should be a mentor, right, for them, and someone that they can come to with problems and concerns. And we get to play this really cool role where we're like not a parent, but we're not spending all the time with your kids, and we're like able to kind of be that relationship for them. So I just say making sure your kid feels comfortable to bring concern to the coach or talk to the coach about issues, or if they feel they're being bullied, they feel like they can tell their coach. I think that the communication with the coach is probably the biggest. If they don't feel like they can talk to their coach, you probably want to look at that and, reevaluate.
So if they have like a pyramid of their pictures on the wall and they rank the children, that's apparently that's bad. Apparently that's bad. No, I don't know.
Can be. Maybe it distills competition. Motivation.
I don't know what it was.
What are some common misconceptions about running a gym or being in this world?
Oh, sure. Especially since I think that entrepreneurship and business ownership oftentimes gets kind of like glorified, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say the biggest misconception is they make a lot of money.
Oh,
I think that's truly I remember being like a coach for years and years, and like I'm adding up the number of kids in my class and what the tuition is and what I'm making. And I'm like, this is insane.
It's crazy.
She's making so much money. But I think when you get into the bills and the expenses that we now have, it's kind of wild where we're really not making a lot of money, and depending on what kind of business owner you want to be. Like, I guess I'm the kind of person who's like, oh, we made extra money, we're gonna get some new mats, or we're gonna buy everybody something for Christmas. So I think you could probably make more money than me for sure. I'm not like the best person with money. We definitely put it all back, and so that's cool. Tricky.
You're not on the billionaire list, is that what you're saying?
Oh, yeah, okay. and I think it is tricky though as a coach. Like, I feel like the coaches are like, I'm in here busting my butt and I'm doing all this hard work, and I feel like they're making a bunch of money. And we did actually make a lot of money when we were really small. So I think like that's just something like when it was just like 2 rooms and I was like coaching all the classes, that's when we were like making good money. But as we get bigger and we like try to pay people really well and we like expand in a retail space and things like that, I'd say that's for sure a misconception. And I think also, I don't know, just that it's pretty easy. Like, I think it comes off pretty easy, and I think like that's within my personality to just be like, it's all good, we're all chilling, we're all like working, and it's fun, but it's like pretty hard some days for sure. Like, and there's a lot of work on the back end. I think that isn't seen, which is tricky. I think like, you know, I work at night, but then I also work a day. I work for the business during the day. So I have 2 jobs, right? So one job is back end and like doing things for the business. And then the other is going into work and like being with the people and like making relationships and making sure their concerns are heard. And, you know, my coaches feel like they have proper attention and all of those things. So I think, maybe that can be a misconception, is that it's limited hours. So for someone who might want to start a gym, it's definitely a lot. It takes a lot because you have 2 kind of jobs to balance. So
yeah, it is a lot of time. Especially with like events outside of the actual class. Like you do stuff for Halloween, making sure all the girls and boys, if there are some, but like all of them feel included. And like this is kind of like a family setting,
community.
Right? Yeah, community. Community is a good word to say it.
Yeah, and those are extra things. So like you don't have to do like there's definitely a different way to do what I'm doing, and probably a better way, you know, to like I mean, I have a friend who has a gym and she's way more successful than I, you know, she's making more money, she can like take vacations, she has a different work-life balance, but I think I'm just a different person, and the way that I want to run it is different. So I definitely think you can do it a different way, and it can be different. But yeah, every time we're not doing something, we're like, what can we do next? What can we be planning to like get people together? And whether it's on the staff end or the kids end or the parents end, like that's our goal, is like community events, which really don't make you any money either. I mean, that's like for you to like bond with your community. So it's like not necessary, you know, for some gyms. So I think just knowing kind of what you want out of that is important.
How do you touched on this a little bit, where like you and other instructors will go through and you go through techniques and whatever, like how do you all stay up on best practices, or just like making sure that you are taking the right approach in order to coach these kids?
So we have monthly meetings for sure, where we do like a training. So we did a handstand breakdown training last month, which was really cool because it's cool to see all your coaches in there like tumbling, you know, and like it doubles as like a team build, you know, which is our big thing, you know, like just getting people together and getting everybody on board with like the vision of what we're doing, you know. But we broke it down into probably 20 different handstand drills that you can use within your class, and how you can use them and what levels you can use them for. And my tumbling program coordinator, Sage, does a great job of that. She really like breaks those things down. And then she also has one-on-one meetings with like every single tumbling coach throughout the session, and is like, how can I help you? Like, what are you feeling comfortable spotting wise? What kind of drills do you need? What kind of levels can I help you progress? And then she works on with them like one-on-one on those things. She'll go into their classroom, help them with spotting techniques and all of that stuff too. So she's been really, really helpful in that specific role. And we kind of made her, you know, she's definitely like their manager, but that's kind of our gym's thing. Is we call her the coordinator. She's there working side by side on the level that they are, trying to help them to better themselves. So it's not like I'm your manager, I'm in charge of you. It's like, I want to help you. And I think our coaches take really well to that because of that. Because she's working alongside them rather than like telling them what needs to be done. I think a lot of gyms have specific lesson plans, and they're like, this is what you'll do for a month, this rotation, and you won't deviate from it. Like that's what our gym is doing. And I think there's merit in that too, because I think across the board, you transfer your class to your kid to another person's class, and you're getting the exact same experience. But for me, in my experience, I found like for me, I need to be motivated to like, and for me to do that, I need the lesson plan. I need to make the lesson plan. So we're teaching our coaches to make the lesson plans themselves and like know what drills, break down skills. And I'd say that's what our gym really prides ourselves on, is breaking things down. So how to break down a forward roll, that's hard because it's like such a basic skill. Yeah. You know, like little skills, like how can I break this into bite-sized pieces to give to the kids so they can understand it? Right. And that's a really tricky skill. And we have a lot of really beginner level kids. And that's something that not a lot of gyms have. So kind of teaching that to our coaches, I think makes them better coaches in the long term and in the higher level, because they know how to break things down.
I think you guys are doing an awesome job. Like just the amount of like confidence that you're putting in these girls. I know I've seen it with my girl, a little bit of an attitude.
For sure.
Sometimes
that's not
a little
from
bit
the
of
gym. That she just
she
has
is a
that.
cheerleader.
She got that from.
No, I think
she got that from you.
Great.
Yeah.
One last question for me is, are there any questions or topics that we haven't covered that you want to cover and kind of want to go over, or you feel like or it should be brought up in either running a gym or starting a gym or taking that leap or being in this world of cheer, gymnastics, dance to transition for this being your full-time job?
Just, I think like being prepared to like give your all to it is for sure like what will make or break you. I think that is like, for me, I just didn't do anything but TMC for 3 years. Like I couldn't think outside of it, you know? And I think being able to give that time to it and know exactly what I wanted is, you know, how we've kind of gotten where we are. Yeah, I think the time commitment's huge, and just, yeah, knowing what your thing is. So for us, our thing is community, like family home gym. So it's intimate class sizes. It's like having the retail space for us was important because I wanted small groups. Because you've probably been to I don't know if you've been to a gymnastics gym, or either of you have been. It's huge, right? Yeah. It's like just this big open space. It's really hard to not be distracted or overwhelmed with like what's going on. So that was important to us. So like, you know, knowing what you want and then basing your gym around that, the location. I mean, like your name is really important. The logo, I think, like was something, you know, we were kind of like, oh, we'll just like get on Logo Maker and do like a free logo. And then I'm like, so glad I didn't do, like I had a friend do it. And I'm like, this is like branded to you forever. I mean, not that you can't change it, but it is definitely like specific to us. And so like really being careful with like what you choose. And for us, we chose a name that kind of the movement center umbrella term, so we can do what we want underneath it, because we didn't really know how it was going to turn out. You know, I mean, I had some dance teachers then, and we were like, maybe we'll get some dance kids, or we didn't know cheer. I mean, I didn't even offer, I had one cheer class when we opened. Like that wasn't really a goal.
Yeah.
And so I think just kind of finding your thing and knowing what that is and how to really like hone in on that, but also like being open to changing that thing. Cause like, you just don't know what's going to come. Like adult tumbling, that's something for us. We like had no idea. I mean, I had an adult tumbling class. I'm like, sure, we'll like offer, you know, adult tumbling. That's fun. Maybe adults want to try, but now we like have the biggest adult program like in the state.
Oh,
like,
really?
For,
Crazy.
like,
That's cool.
For like adult tumbling instructional classes. Like nobody offers them. And that's something I didn't even really know, you know, but we get calls we get like multiple calls throughout the week. Like, oh, you guys have that adult tumbling. And I didn't know that was going to be like our niche. But so we're kind of just rolling with that. So I think just being able to be like, even if you had a plan, just adapting and, you know, just kind of going with what is working for you.
Yeah.
And kind of riding with that, because there's little things that you don't know that other people need until they need them. And then you're like, okay, now I'm this program that offers that, like the high school prep cheer. I'm like, I didn't know we were going to fall into that. And here we are, and we've got 70 kids in that program, and it's great. And, you know,
cool.
So, but that wasn't in the original plan. So I think just being able to be open to change and seeing what your community needs from you and trying to make that happen.
Gotcha.
That's awesome.
For clarification, when you say adult tumbling, what age range are we talking? Like they
I'd
have to be
say
older
they're
than
like
18?
Older than 18, and I'd say our oldest guy's like 67.
67.
Wow. Okay.
Like learning back
So
handsprings and back
18
tucks
to
and
like high 60s.
yes.
That
Okay.
60s.
Is,
Yeah.
I am
That's
impressed.
interesting.
And they're by
Oh, yeah.
level, so
Sure.
they're split by level. So we have beginning, intermediate, advanced. So beginning, people are learning handstands, cartwheels, forward, backward rolls, bridges, basics of tumbling. I mean, it's a great workout too.
Yeah,
and yeah, but when we started, we just had like one adult tumbling class, and we're just kind of like, but everywhere in the valley has open gym, but open gym is different. So if you go to like open gym at GTC or whatever, it's like a big gym, and you can go and you can practice your skills, and there's pits, and they have lots of fun equipment, but there's not really like a structured class. So that's kind of where we were different, is like we're doing like warm up, we're doing pad drill like across the floor, they're doing stations to learn their skills, they're doing conditioning for their skills. So like that whole thing was just not something that was like out there, but I didn't really know that. So it's really special. And we have it every night, and it's like one of our bigger programs, but I wasn't really anticipating that, you know.
That's cool though.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. People with more, what's that fear that you were talking about? They have less of it than I do. I'm definitely like,
oh my gosh, it's terrifying. I can't believe like an adult, like me knowing how to tumble, I'm like, I think that is so cool that you are willing to like throw yourself backwards
Yes.
into a backflip at like 40 years
Yes.
old. I'm like, I
Right.
just like can't imagine.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I'm gonna blow my
way
ACL
cool,
or
yeah.
something.
Yeah, that's funny. And one age clarification for high school prep. What is that range?
For competitive cheer, we start at 3 and go up till 16, 17.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So our littlest team is like ages 3 to 5, and they practice once a week and they compete. So
I guess we'll get into the plug.
Yeah, now's the plug. So tell us everything that anyone who's listening wants to know about how to find you, or any of the information, just your whole spiel.
So it's the Movement Center. You guys can find us on Instagram, Facebook. I'd say we do a lot on Instagram. You can email us. We have registration opening for our spring session, December 16th. So those spring classes will start in January. If you're interested in like the cheer world, we have recreational cheer classes that'll prep you for cheer tryouts that will be in June. And yeah, you can follow us on social media for more.
Markie, thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you guys.
much.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
me.
it.